Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and I just got back from the new film, Texas Chainsaw 3D. Picks up where the original 1974 film left off, and does away with the 6 other sequels because I guess those don't matter now. Apparently after the original happened and the police came, a bunch of Texans came and decided to burn down the house because it's an eye for an eye. That's what the good book says, as they say in the film. And they burn it down and kill all the Sawyers in Leatherface's family in the fire and the rain of gunfire that laid down upon them, except for a young baby named Heather, who's placed with an adoptive family. For the next 20 years, she doesn't actually know she's adopted until when she is served with legal papers that tell her that her grandmother has died. Her grandmother Sawyer, she's like, who is this? And her parents are like, you're adopted and stuff. Sorry, we didn't tell you. She finds out through these legal papers that she has inherited a house in Texas. And so her and her friends, who are already going to New Orleans, conveniently enough, for Halloween, which they don't really touch upon that much, they go to Texas in this spooky house, and then they discover Leatherface, who is her cousin, and he goes on the typical kind of killing spree that you're supposed to in a horror film. It doesn't even come close to getting to the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre in terms of tone and scares and blood and gore, although it claims on the Wikipedia page that apparently it had to be cut down for violence because it would have gotten an NC-17 rating, which is something I think was really cute by the publicity department, but there isn't really a high body count. It doesn't really have the blood and the gore it needs. And for a movie that's called Texas Chainsaw 3D, you'd think they'd have more chainsaws in 3D. I have to admit, the parts where the chainsaw is in 3D I thought were great. One I laughed pretty loudly at. So loud I think the other people in the theater laughed at me, but I think I might be just being self-conscious. The guy who directed this, John Lazenhop, in some ways I like what he did, but most of the ways I think what he did was pretty horrible. It didn't seem like he had ever really been to Texas and didn't really understand Texas. He's using some of the worst Texan cliches throughout this film. And one of the big themes that the film starts off with is that Leatherface needs to get revenge on these people who destroyed his family. That's part of the movie I like probably the least. It doesn't really work very well. It's not plotted out very well. They leave it for a big chunk of the movie, I think for like almost the first 2 acts, so they can do all this stuff with Heather and her friends. And all this stuff with Heather and her friends is kind of like a usual stupid, silly horror movie kind of stuff. I mean, they make some pretty horrible decisions, such as they pick up a hitchhiker who they kind of run into and it's obviously a setup, and they're like, sure, we'll pick him up. And then when they get to the house, they leave him there by himself when he's seen this house and all these amazing things in it. Like, clearly he's gonna rip you off. Like, I don't understand. Like, no, we'll be back with food. You stay here, guy. We don't really know that well. They make such dumb decisions when it's doing everything with the teens. I think it's really kind of fun. It's stupid fun. It's not a great horror genre film, but it was something I laughed at and had a little bit of fun with, even though it was stupid. There's even a part where Trey Songz and one of Heather's friends, this girl, and him suddenly apparently had an affair, which they just hint at. All that comes out of nowhere. And then they like decide like, yeah, let's have sex right in this barn right next to the house, but it's like she's right there. They just kept making decisions that you're like, I don't know if that's like a good, really? You're gonna do that? If this had just been Leatherface chasing those teenagers for the entire movie in 3D, I think I might have given this a positive review, but the problem with it is it just doesn't latch onto that fun enough. I wish John Lazenhop had really realized what he's good at when he's doing a Texas Chainsaw film. And the fact that they're trying to make it serious and add this kind of sense of mythology with this Texan mayor, this film needed to embrace its stupidity. And John Lazenhop seems to be good at making a really stupid, dumb horror movie. And he seemed to even be having fun with it, especially when Leatherface goes into this carnival and people are like running and screaming, and then there's a Tobe Hooper reference. That seemed to be the most fun. If you're gonna have this movie be in 3D, like, have some fun with it. That's kind of what people want to see from a 3D horror movie, because no one really takes a 3D horror movie very seriously. So why don't you embrace it rather than kind of fight it and try to make like out of this mythology crap. I did kind of find it interesting though. The best parts in 3D is when they converted the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. At the beginning they show clips of it and they kind of converted that to 3D, and it actually was probably the best parts of the film in 3D that weren't when Leatherface is throwing a chainsaw at the screen. And I was kind of surprised how well it worked. This is a bad movie. When it really shines, I think it, which are little very little moments of actual fun. You can kind of see where John Lesenhaupt could maybe make a fun, stupid, dumb horror movie, but this just isn't it. Overall, I think it wasn't that enjoyable, but it definitely has its moments. Alright, so if you have seen Texas Chainsaw 3D and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments, and subscribe if you would like to. I actually saw this at the first showing, and I wish the glasses had some chainsaws on them, or the actual frames were chainsaws. I don't know. I feel like they should have had more fun with it. There should have been at least 20 chainsaws in 3D.